Welcome. Consider the random variable X is the number of cars sold by a salesperson in a month at the Anytown used car depot. We're going to answer 3 questions. The first is, let's verify, is this table below a probability distribution? So let's look at a couple things. So our random variable X, does it only take on numerical values? 0, 1, and so on. Look, through 7. Yes, it does. I'm going to add one more word. I'm going to add discrete. Our discrete random variable X takes on only numerical values. Okay, so we have this condition. And what else do we need to know? Well, do the probabilities add up to 1? So take a moment and pop all these onto your calculator and add these up. Well, what did you find when you added up these probabilities? You should have that the sum of the probabilities equals 1. So since we have only numerical values and the probabilities add to 1, we definitely do have a probability distribution. So I'm going to put yes. We have a probability distribution. Next, let's find and interpret the mean and the standard deviation for this table. I'm going to add 2 more rows. So go ahead and follow along with me and extend your table. So here we have x times p of x in this row. And in my next row, I'm going to multiply the probability by the square of each random variable. So first row, 0 times 0.04 is just 0. 1 times 0.08 is 0.08. Please take a moment and fill out the rest of these cells by multiplying our random variable x times the probability given. Okay, your table should be nearly complete, if not complete already. Please follow along, or that is, check your work with the values I'm about to write down. Okay, now in this next table, actually, excuse me, before we go on to the next row, check that the values on your table match up. Now in this next row, we're going to multiply the square of the random variable. So in this case, we have 0 squared times the probability 0.04. And that's obviously just going to give us 0. Next, we're going to square 1 and multiply it by the probability. Again, we're just going to get 0.08. Now in this case, the square of 2 is 4, so we're going to multiply this by 4 to get 0.4, and I'm going to do one more for you. 3 squared times this probability, that's 9 times 0.37, and that's 3.33. Please fill out the remaining 4 cells in your table. Okay, I'm going to fill in the rest of my table. Please make sure that your values for your completed table match up with the following. Now, why do we need these values here? Well, remember, the mean of a probability distribution is equal to the sum of our random variable times the probability. So this row here, once I add it together, I'll get my mean. So go ahead and take a moment and add up all of these values using your calculator. Okay, your mean should be the sum you have on your calculator, and that sum is 3.29. Next, recall that the standard deviation, well, that's equal to the square root of the sum of the square of the the square of the random variable times the probabilities, and then from this we subtract the mean. Okay, so take a moment and try that on your own calculator. Well, for this sum, that is, let me write this in purple here. The sum of the square of the random variables times the probability. What did you end up with? On your own calculator, once you added up this row, you should have 12.51. That tells me that my standard deviation is the square root of 12.51 minus, and I forgot a square there, excuse me, that should be the square of the mean. So minus 3.29 squared, and all of this is inside our square root. So take a moment and work that out. All right, you should have 1.298. Okay, so, and this is for part 2. So to answer question 2, we'll do that right here. The mean is 3.29, and our standard deviation is 1.298. This tells us that car salesmen, on average, at the Anytown Used Car Depot sell 3.29 cars with a standard deviation of 1.298. Clearly, you don't sell 0.29 worth of a car, but this is about as close, so about 3 cars with the standard deviation. Okay, now let's answer question 3. Is it unusual for a car salesman to sell 2 cars in 1 month? Well, remember, usual values are within 2 standard deviations of the mean, so we need to ask ourselves, is 2 within 2 sigma, so 2 standard deviations of our mean? Well, 2 is below the mean, so if 2 is less than our mean minus 2 standard deviations, then it would be unusual. So this is unusual if true. Well, let's figure this out. We have 3.29 minus 2 times 1.298. Take a moment and figure that out, please. And this gives you, on your own calculator, you should have 0.694. So the lower bound for usual number of cars sold is less than 2. So this tells me that this is not true. That means 2 is greater than this value. That means 2 is within 2 standard deviations of the mean. So no, it is not unusual for a salesperson to sell 2 cars in 1 month. Welcome. In this video, I'm going to quickly demonstrate how to use StatCrunch to find the mean and standard deviation for a probability distribution. Those of you in my class have already seen an example of how to do this here manually. Now we're going to use StatCrunch to do this. As you can see, I already entered the information from the table here. Notice I have my random variables 0 through 7, and then all the probability of each random variable occurring here. Now to find the mean and standard deviation, go to Stat, Calculators. Oh, my screen is a little off. Let me move this up so you guys can see everything. We don't need to see the problem so much anymore. So there we go. So Stat, Calculators, and then go down here to the bottom to Custom. And now your values, you're going to select the random variables here. So column 1, var 1. And then our weights are the probabilities of each random variable occurring. And those are in var 2 in the second column, so select that. And then click Compute. And you notice you get the mean and standard deviation here. Keep calm and math on.